Hey, what's going on, guys? Crobat for the win. Danza here today, and I'll be your host for Around the Rhyhorn, Season 4, Week 6. I'm privileged to be here today with 4 panelists on today's show, Mr. Monotooi, Mr. Advent, Mr. K2/Kyle, and our 2-time in a row Around the Rhyhorn champion, Mr. DallasBoy1992. Introduce yourselves.
Hey GBA, it's DallasBoy1992, and I am happy that Danza is all better from his strep throat from last week. So let's get this show on the road.
Thank you.
Hey, what's up, you guys? I'm Advent, new writer for the GBA, and I just want to say thanks to Crobat for having me here today.
Hi everyone, I'm Monotooi. Thank you, Danza, for having me here, and thank you to Dallas Boy for making me a new icon. I no longer have to use that random picture of Bert.
What's going on, everybody? K2 here. And I would like to thank you guys for voting me as a winner in week 3, which was the last time I showed up, and I'm grateful to be back once again.
Awesome. I want to thank you all again for joining this week. Alright, so here's our introduction for the day. I'm going to say a phrase that relates to the GBA this week, and you guys are welcome to respond however you can. This week's word, stealing a thunder from the power rankings and the weekly recap, the word is first. Let's hear your thoughts.
Well, to secure a playoff spot in the GBA, it's imperative that you stay in, first place. Currently, the first place teams in each division are currently the Utah Jasmine, the Cincinnati Loudreds, the New York Yankees, and the Real Morel. All 4 teams have planned very well and played very well this season, and that's why they're in first. Cooper and Cheaty face some stiff competition in John and Dan, respectively, in their divisions, but if they keep doing what they do, they should remain in first place. Just gotta watch out for those blue shells.
So when I think first, I usually think of Dan's first loss. A-Drive this week experienced his first loss in the season, which I'm actually really worried about considering he might go on a tilt now, and that's the last thing you want going against Shady Penguin. He's a great battler, so you need to go in clean-minded and just ready to play to the best of your ability.
I think everybody remembers their first time. For me, it was out on the beach. We were alone. It was a warm day. The sun was shining. Sunscreen all over. I don't know where I'm going with that, but the point is, this week we had several firsts go on. We had Magnitude's first win. We had the loss of our 2 undefeated teams, being Molvone and Dan, both losing their first games this week. And as far as firsts go, these were pretty unexpected as well. I really didn't expect Dan to lose, and I really didn't expect Molvone to lose, especially the way he beat Hank the previous week.
Let's go ahead and talk about Steve's first win. Steve, we are all very thankful that you finally put something together. And you really dominated your match this week. So all your planning that you've put together finally has wrapped up into a nice little present for a win against Crimson. And 1 win could pile up to 5 wins. It could also just stay at just 1 win. So if it's your first, it might also be your last. So you should be very thankful.
Good points. Do you guys have any final remarks about the word first?
Blue shell.
I'll take that as a no.
This is not an invitation to write first in the comments of this video, by the way.
Oh god, I didn't think about that.
I mean, you're either first or last.
Okay, after a strong introduction, let's discuss the first word. You guys are welcome to have a brief debate or discussion about the 2 topics I've chosen. Hank has begun a major turnaround for his season by sending a message to everyone. His message was that he is still a strong contender, and he took on Molvone, who was once undefeated. For now, Hank has that last playoff spot, since Geo has fallen to 2 and 4. Would you guys expect Hank to keep winning, or do you expect Geo to turn his game around? What are your thoughts?
I fully expect Hank to win out the rest of the season. Possibly not win out, but definitely the next 3 weeks. He's playing 3 straight 1-win teams in the Red Rockies, which was a rematch in which he lost 1-0 due to a little bit of hacks that didn't go his way. He plays the Pittsburgh Pirates, who Cup isn't really playing his best right now. And he plays Crimson Seabed and the currently last place in the Diamond Division, Detroit Steel Wings. So that'll be this week, and I fully expect him to win all 3 of those. The match against Shady could be a toss-up depending on how Shady plans that week, but Shady has been playing really well. However, I feel it is not very easy because anybody can win any week. However, I feel like it is a little bit of an easier road for him to win out the rest of the season and clinch the wild card spot.
I would expect actually both to happen. Hank has a pretty easy schedule coming down the stretch, where he has 2 easy weeks in the form of the Detroit Steel Wings and the Pittsburgh Piratas, but he pretty much needs to be a little bit wary of the next teams he has to face, the New York Yankees. All 4 of those games are winnable for Hank if he plays his cards right. And Gio, I definitely expect him to bounce back because he faced a very, very hard opponent to beat in the form of Miguel and the Real Morel, but here on out he has to face Nip, Steve, and Crimson Seabad, all of which have a grand total of 3 wins combined. All of those matches are very winnable, and after that he has to face a pretty tough test in Mulvone. Playoff race is definitely going to go down the wire, but if Hank continues to rally after his victory over Mulvone, I think Hank's going to take that last wildcard spot.
Honestly, I feel like Gio is going to turn his game around. Last week, he actually went against Miguel, or Mega Mogwai, as you guys might know him. And at the beginning of the match, it looked like he had the game in the bag, but then I saw a couple misplays here and there. He started to choke. But it happens. Miguel is a very great player, and he prepared very well for the match considering he had Pokemon Showdown, so he didn't have to rush the Gen and team. So there's no excuse of no max happiness or whatever for Return to do its max power, which actually allowed Mega Mogwai to compete to the best of his ability, and the same thing for Gio. But I felt like Gio did choke near the end and let Mogwai take the game even though he had the lead. So I feel like Gio learned from that, and he's going to actually step up and he's going to turn this game around and he's going to get the playoff spot.
The playoff race between these two is coming very, very close. I believe Hank is 3-3, and Gio is 2-4 at this point. Both of them have relatively easy schedules coming up. I know Gio plays the Sawsbucks, the Reggie Rockies, and Detroit Steel Wings, while Hank plays the Detroit Steel Wings, Piratas, and the Reggie Rockies the next 3 weeks. And really, I expect both of them to win all 3 of those matches, but the match that I think is going to count the most is going to be that last match where Hank goes up against Shady Penguin, who is currently 5-1, and Gio going up against the Loudreds, whose record is 5-1. So really, I think this wildcard spot could come down to the very last match.
Okay, so John ended up defeating the undefeated Dan this week. Another first this week. My question is, to what extent was this a win for John and a loss for Dan? In the grand scheme of the season, will this win affect John positively, and will this loss affect Dan negatively? Will John make the playoffs even though he's on the bubble? Feel free to discuss.
This win is huge for John because it allows him to crawl back into that final wildcard position that everybody's fighting for in the Hoenn Conference. Now, Dan's loss, it is the first one of the season, and he still has a pretty rough schedule ahead of him. John, however, he has such a good team and plans so thoroughly every single week that I feel if he can win out, which I definitely feel he can, he just has to beat Miguel this week in order to ensure that. I feel like he can sneak into that final wildcard spot over Dan just from beating Dan this week. Now, in order for that to happen, it's not even in John's hands anymore. It would have to be up to A-Drive in order to choke it away, which might not happen. Who knows what can happen in the next 4 weeks. These final 4 weeks are going to be huge for John, and really Cooper as well, because if Cooper starts losing, John can take over that conference lead. So either way, John winning that match against Dan put him in a great position. Otherwise, he would be 2-4, really on the outside looking in to get into the playoffs.
I think this is a pretty harsh loss for Dan, because as Kyle said, he does have a tougher schedule down the road. And this first loss of the season pretty much hurt him, aside from him having a team disadvantage. Dan definitely unprepared for Sylveon this week. You and Chansey were both essentially setup fodder for some Sylveon called mines, which pretty much wound up plowing through his team with Hyper Voice and Psyshock, especially that Bioplume, which he wound up critting, and I doubt that mattered in the long run. I feel that hand for that could have brought a Nidoqueen or a Bulky Volcarona set to better deal with Sylveon, and a few other things that John could have brought, but hindsight's 20/20. But as much of a bad loss as this was for Dan, this was also a very good win for John, for him to get the momentum he needs for this tough schedule down the road. He's still a game back of Cooper and 2 games back of Dan, but he has to face Miguel this week, Mulvone next week, Cooper after that, which could wind up being for the division. John still has a good chance to make the playoffs, but he needs to bring something beyond his A game, especially for Miguel.
Alright, so I have to agree that this was a horrible loss for Dan for many reasons. I really feel like he didn't consider the Venusaur to be a big enough threat to prepare for it. I mean, he prepared for it, but not as much as I would have liked to see him do. Like, for example, there was this one turn that really could have changed the whole game around, and it was when he switched out Archeops and the Venusaur went for the knockoff. At that point, if he had a flying stab, which would have been acrobatics, he could have dented that Venusaur so much that it could have just changed the outcome in the game and maybe even got him the win. Not only that, but he also didn't carry a Psychic Stab on Mew, which would have also decimated that Venusaur. I felt like he thought, oh, it's a bulky Pokemon, it's not going to apply as much pressure as I think it will. Wrong. That Venusaur went in, stalled him out, put in some good turns, and effectively changed the whole outcome of the match and allowed Sylveon to come in and just sweep with Hyper Voice and Psyshock. But it's also a really good win for John. It gives him hype, gets him ready for the next opponent that he's going to go against, and he's going to go in with a positive mindset, just ready to battle.
This was a huge win for John this week, and not a horrible loss for Dan, but it was a loss, and a loss that I don't think many people expected with the way that John had been playing and the way that Dan had been playing. However, the reason why I say that it's not too huge of a loss for Dan is because he's still 5-1, tying the best record in the league with, I believe, 3 other players. And he still sits pretty nicely in the wildcard spot, and he's still even in the race for the top of the Pearl Division. Now, this win for John, while it isn't necessarily an automatic gift to the playoffs, it is definitely important, and it is definitely a very big confidence booster. Beating a team that was previously undefeated while you, at the time, were kind of struggling in your matches is one of the best feelings that a player can get, or a coach can get. And if John keeps this momentum, and maybe Dan or Cooper kind of falls off the map a little bit, or if they start playing a little bit weaker, then John does have a good chance to come out on top.
Just a few other things that I wanted to point out. This was Donkey Punch Jones's first game, and man, he put in so much work with that Focus Sash. That was a clutch kill on Terrakion. Donkey Punch Jones putting in the work this week, so shout out to Donkey Punch Jones.
Alright. I think we're ready to move on, though. Next up, the new Hype Train segment. I want you guys to hype up the coach that you've chosen going into this week. Sell us on the fact that they are going to win and that they are going to do well the rest of the season. Tell us why they will make the playoffs, if applicable. Unleash your inner fanboy. Ready?
Yep.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Alright, this week, for the Hype Train, I am covering Steve Magnitude of the Milwaukee Sawsbucks. Now, you may look at his record, you see 1-5, you're like, man, he ain't got shit. But listen, I'm gonna go over a couple things right now. Here's why Steve is gonna put Old Man Tup of the Pittsburgh Piratas in the retirement home that he belongs. You ready? Here we go. You see, the biggest threat on his team against Steve is his Mega Alakazam. And I don't know about you, but if the biggest enemy in your life is an old wizard holding a bunch of spoons as his greatest talent, I think you're gonna be okay. And right here I just have a little bit of a calc. Mega Gardevoir Hyper Voice, 94 to 112% to a Mega Alakazam. And this is what I imagine Mega Alakazam's reaction is gonna be.
Mother trucker, dude! That hurt like a butt cheek on a stick!
Essentially, it's gonna get knocked the fuck out. Also, something else on his team that is a pretty big threat, Mammothline. Pretty fat, a lot of attack, nice ability, pretty hairy, that's a pretty big plus.
Yeah, just ask Steve.
Yeah. Essentially, another calc right over here. Hyper Voice versus a Mammothline, 106 to 124%. This fucking woman who runs a porn site can knock out a fucking woolly mammoth with its voice. This is like, imagine if Nicki Minaj just went to an old people club and just started singing. Everyone would die. That's what's going to happen with Nicki.
Everyone died. Ian.
I'm fucking done, dude.
That didn't help at all.
And you might be saying, Oh, but Mono, Cacturne at +2 knocks out Mega Gardevoir with Sucker Punch before it even gets to attack. Motherfucker, that is a cactus. And you know what cactuses have? Little prickly thorns made of organic. You know what Steve has? A fucking ball of metal spikes. I don't even know how much it does. It was so fucking minuscule I didn't even decide to calc it. Adamant, Life Orb. With 88 EVs in defense with a plus defense nature, it still does not OHKO. Well, it might OHKO, but it won't. The chance of Ferrothorn getting OHKO'd by a Drain Punch from a +2 Adamant Life Orb Cacturne is about the same chance as me getting laid by the end of the school year. I know no one has seen my face, but trust me, it's not a good chance.
Alrighty then, so you hyped up the Sawsbucks pretty well there. Alrighty, I guess next up is Kyle and Hank.
Alright, you guys aren't ready for this. Hank and the Winnipeg Aquajets go up against the Detroit Steel Wings in a match for the ages. But for real, okay, let's get right into this. So Hank, coming off of a 3-game slide, now coming off of a 3-game slide and heading into a week against Molvon, who he just lost to the previous week, he prepared so thoroughly. It's like he Shia LaBeouf'd that. Honestly, he just did it. He went in there, prepared so much more thoroughly than he did the previous week, and that's something that you really have to watch out for. He did so well in this rematch against Molvon that he can take that momentum, plow through the next 3 weeks, all of which have 1 win, and go into a final week against Shady, who, depending on how well he plays, it could very well mean that Hank is going to win out this season. Now, Hank's team is ridiculous. Triple Regenerator Core is too much for people to break through sometimes. Maybe not, but either way, his team, Mega Pinsir, everything is just too much. He prepared so well this week with Mystical Fire, digging deep into Mismagius's move pool, as well as just thinking really outside the box. I feel like he can use that momentum heading into the final 4 weeks and win out and make that playoff push a reality.
Alright, Dallas, go hype up Cooper.
In the words of Bill Belichick, Cooper's on in Cincinnati this week in a clash of the Titans for matchup of the week with Molvon 19. Cooper's facing a wide variety of threats, but I know he can pull this one out of the bag. A bulky variant of Mega Charizard X has the ability and the skills to handle most of the threats on Molvon's team, along with a Nidoking with the right moves. Cooper can win with those 2 mons and a little extra help on the bench, and the smarts that he has. The thing about Cooper is that Cooper is a very, very smart battler. One of the reasons why his matchup against Nips ended in a 6v6 timeout is because Cooper was planning all of his possible moves and made them work. Cooper's smart. His Mega Charizard X, whom I believe will finally get a kill this week, his Nidoking, and his game planning will help him beat Molvon and carry him to the playoffs. He is in great position to claim the diving conference, and with what he's been doing, there is a chance he could go all the way.
Danza's still waiting on that
You got
Utah
that, please.
Jasmine waffle maker.
Don't do that. I don't want 7.5 times. Alrighty. So, before I have a heart attack, let's move on to the last one. Advent will hype up Shady.
Alright, so why do I think Shady's gonna beat the St. Louis Rampardos? That's for a lot of reasons. First of all, Shady has team advantage over the Rampardos. For example, Superior versus Rotom Wash. What the fuck is a Rotom Wash compared to a Superior? It gets contrary Leaf Storm. When it's at +2, that thing is dead, gone. That's it, it's out. A Mega Sableye? Psh, Azelf doesn't give a fuck. Dazzling Gleam that shit? Oh, it's using Calm Minds? Who cares? It probably won't even be a Calm Mind variant. It'll probably be like the technical substitute, shadow sneak, all that good stuff. Honestly, I feel like Shady's gonna go in. He's ready to battle, and he's gonna take this match easy as hell.
Alrighty. So, any last hyping you guys want to do?
Yes, I would just like to say, Steve, I know, listen, I hyped you up a lot, and I know you're probably nervous, because you have a lot to win for, you have a lot to prove, but I have a little bit of a motivation for it.
Do it! Just do it!
And there you go.
I mean, Hank's a Pidgey, so he's gonna win. Alright, so, Danza, I know this is kind of a rough week for you, because you still haven't gotten your Utah Jazz Waffle Maker. Are you okay?
I don't know, man. It's been rough. It's a rough time.
It's also been a rough time for Waffles the Dog as we commence our hashtag Wafflegate 2015 campaign.
Hashtag apologize before magnitude.
May Arceus be with you guys.
Oh, man.
Also, though, no joking aside, really do feel like Shady's gonna go in. He's been on a win streak currently, so there's no doubt that he's not gonna go in there and be like, oh man, I'm worried, because, you know, he's been doing really good. So the last thing on his mind is gonna be a tilt. So he's just gonna go in clear-minded. That's typically every player that gets a lot of wins. He has Mega Zizwer, also known as Octavius. That'll basically carry his team with ease, honestly. He has Volcarona is gonna oppose a threat, but it's gonna be really good against the Slurpluff, the Archeops even, and the Vileplume. Even the Chansey with a nice knockoff, actually.
Yeah.
So
Thank
I'm ready
God
to get
Shady
going.
doesn't go against Fire Blast Gyarados.
Poor Fire Blast.
Yeah, he never saw it coming.
Never.
People complain when I don't bring up Fire Blast Gyarados, so I have to at least once in every episode.
Doesn't Gyarados get Thunderbolt too?
Yep. Alright. So, time to move on. The hype train was fun. I think it's going to be one of our new favorite segments. That was awesome. Another round is over. Next we have Out of Bounds. So this week we have a second in the GBA. Not a first, a second. A 6v6 timeout. With the same person as last time, Cooper. Just to add more insult to injury. What's up with this, guys? How does he get these timeouts? How did Nips play into this? Is this like a big scandal or something? Should Cooper be removed from the league? Discuss.
Okay, so I'm going to start off by saying I don't think he should be removed from the league, but I do feel as if they should have a rematch. And the main reason I say that is because when people watch the GBA, they want to watch exciting, fast-paced matches that are actually competitive, and it's not all just one-sided, because from my point of view, Nips was trying his hardest to break down those walls, but Cooper was just stalling and stalling and stalling. And the main thing that he actually did, I'm not sure if he did it on purpose or if he was actually calking, but it looked like he was running the timer down. So I felt like this was more of a, look, I'm going to have fun with this, you know, don't take it seriously kind of thing. But also I feel like as Nips, he's like, you know, I'm competitive, I want to play. And you're not giving me that ability to play or actually use strategy to beat you. So I think they should just have a rematch, see who would actually beat each other. But stall is a game style or a type of way to play. So there's no taking that away from Cooper. If that's the type of player he is, that's the type of player he is. We're here to win, not to impress. So, you know, I gotta give him credits for actually being able to pull that off.
Yes, this match between Cooper and Nips was a long, hour-long match that ended in a 6-6 tie, primarily due to Cooper's extremely bulky team that really heavily countered Nips, and Nips' lack of ability to break through the bulk that he did bring. I think the reason that Nips was unable to break through Cooper's team was due to not bad planning, but I think not the planning he should have done. And what I mean by that, I'll just give an example right here. One of the best ways to plan for a match in the GBA is to bring a Pokemon with a certain set that can take on as many of your opponent's Pokemon as possible. For example, the Cobalion was a pretty big threat to Cooper's team, but instead of it being used as an offensive threat, it was used as a Volt Switch, Stealth Rocking kind of utility mon. An example that I think could have worked really well against Cooper would have been either Life Orb Swords Dance with Close Combat, Iron Head, Stone Edge, or something like a Sub-Toxic set, similar to like the Sub-Toxic Jirachi set. And the reason I'm saying this is because a Sub-Toxic Cobalion would have been able to outspeed Zapdos, and it would have been able to get a Toxic off on the Zapdos. and wear it down, whereas the set Nips brought was entirely walled by Zapdos. Not only that, but Chansey was his heal beller. It was the thing that healed the statuses off of any of his other Pokemon, but obviously Cobalion beats Chansey. So if you know that Cobalion has Toxic, you're not going to want to switch it into a Zapdos, and while Cobalion's on the field, you're not going to be able to switch in Chansey. Also, one more thing, I know Nips did want to bring rocks, and so he slapped rocks onto his Cobalion, but if he did really want to bring rocks against Cooper's team, Jirachi didn't have a terrible matchup either. Yeah, it could have been brought instead of maybe Quagsire, which didn't do all that much. And Jirachi does not, if you're running a Spadef set or you're running a bulky set, Jirachi does not get OHKO'd by Nidoking's Earth Power, it doesn't get OHKO'd by anything else, and it just does decent against Cooper's team.
I'm probably going to have to disagree partly with Mono and wholeheartedly with Advent here. I feel like Nips didn't do really anything. He played right into Cooper's hands the whole match. He didn't prepare anywhere near what he needed to. He brought, instead of threatening Dragon Dancing Mega Altaria that really Cooper doesn't have a whole lot for, he brought just a bulky one that he couldn't really bring. He brought like a really bad balanced team is what it looked like to me. He brought a Quagsire that had 3 attacks. That's something you don't do. Ice Beam? Yeah, sure, it hits Zapdos, but you're better off laying a Toxic on it. Quagsire, yeah, you have to bring it for the Mega Charizard in order for it to do anything, or in order to stop the Mega Charizard, but Mega Charizard still basically 2-hit KOs it after a Dragon, or with 2 Dragon Claws. And it could also have Hidden Power Grass. I really feel like Nips just played right into Cooper's hands, and on top of that, he really checked out of the match before even it turned into a 100% this is going to be a time stall. That's what Cooper does. He takes his time. When you play stall, it's not about predictions, it's about making the correct play. If you want to keep your Rons at high health in order for them to keep wearing down the opponent's team, and then you can come in with your sweepers later, that's exactly what he did. He wanted to make sure that his Mons were at high health, not so then he could win the match based on health from the timeout, but that's how he would have played the rest of the match. He's not going to make unnecessary plays because the timer's running down just to get some extra damage or just to kill something at the end of the match. Like, Nips was complaining about how he didn't switch in Nidoking once, but that's because Cooper felt like Nidoking wasn't ready to come in and sweep the match quite yet. He still needed damage on other things in order for Nidoking really to do anything. He was afraid that Cobalion maybe had Earthquake. Maybe that's why he didn't switch it in. Like, Nidoking would have been a problem, yes, and it probably would have gotten a couple kills, but it also was his win condition. And on top of that, on top of my point where he wasn't planning correctly, he brought a Snorlax with only normal coverage when he knows that Cooper has not only Zapdos, which can basically wall it out or roar it out or whatever, he also has Dusknoir, which can come in and literally just sit there and take anything that a Snorlax wants to do against it. So I felt like it was a very poor performance and very poor attitude overall from Nips. Again, it was a live reaction, so we don't know exactly how he's going to deal with it, per se, for the rest of the season, but I just felt like he could have done a whole lot better.
I'm going to agree with Kyle here. Nips completely underprepared for Cooper and his stalling shenanigans this week. He brought balance, and pretty bad balance, as Kyle said, instead of hyper offense against Cooper, and pretty much completely played into the stalling. Nips, I believe, very well could have 6-0'd Cooper if he brought a Mega Altaria with the moveset Dragon Dance, Refresh, or Heal Bell, whichever of the two works, Return, and Earthquake. He could run Roost on that 4th slot on Mega Altaria, but he'd have to bring some way to get rid of Cooper's Nidoking. Probably the Alakazam that he had, which he did bring, or a Scarf Jirachi with either Zen Headbutt or Psyshock, depending on the set. which would have had a pretty good matchup this week in my opinion. It's not that Cooper had to resort to timeout. Nips just completely played into his playstyle and played way too safely, which caused Cooper to plan for the mid game, which was pretty much stalling out Roserade's aromatherapies. And that's what pretty much led to the timeout. And I remember earlier in the season that he said earlier in the season that Nips is the numb nexus of the GBA. And from what I've seen, I agree with him. Nips has completely underprepared practically every single week. More or less brought the same mons with the same sets and only amounted to a grand total of 1 win this season because of hacks. Heck, if I were doing the power rankings, I'd have Nips ranked dead last, despite having higher differential than Tup and Crimson. It's very disappointing that I have to say this to someone who has such a great team. Cooper should not be removed from the league for doing this twice. Nips took the stall bait, got hooked, and lost. I mean, his Mega Altaria was at very low health from the Blissey and getting the full para. He only preserved the Mega Altaria just to save face for the 6v6. So I definitely believe that Cooper had that match won. Nips lost that match.
Alrighty. So, do you guys have any final remarks about Cooper or that 6v6 timeout or Nips or anything?
Yep, it sounds like Nips is starting to slip.
May as well call him Slip.
But yeah, I feel like he had good intentions. I thought he was thinking, I'm gonna go in and we're both gonna use balanced teams, when that's not really the case. Cooper was like, I'm still gonna stall you out, dude, regardless. Maybe he thought, maybe he'd do something different, bring a different team. He didn't think he would go for the 6v6 timeout again, but that was not the case. So.
Again, it's not like Cooper went into the match thinking, hey, I want to stall you out for 60 minutes. He went in wanting to win the match within 60 minutes. However,
I mean, yeah, but that's his playstyle, you know. That's how he wins. He's like, all right, I'm gonna stall you out and I'm gonna win. So I mean, the fact that he did stall him out, but he didn't go in the match thinking he was gonna stall you out, is just completely.
Let's not forget this. In order to get a 6v6 timeout, a Nidoking must be involved somewhere. It either must be in one of the team names or it must be on one of the teams.
Touché.
Alright, so on that note, at last, we have the lightning round. You will all have 30 seconds to make a stance or take a stance, disagree, agree, whatever with the statement I make. I must emphasize, these are not my opinions, but rather topics I think people would be interested to listen to you guys talk about. Let's jump in.
Want to see you do it again?
What?
You want to see me do it again?
Oh man. I'm dying here. I'm dying. 7.5 times.
No, this is Patrick.
This is Patrick! Okay, lightning round number 1. Because Steve versus Crimson was pretty much like an OU versus RU match, Steve won at the team preview. I'm just gonna get my phone up. 1 second, and alright, I got it. First one, go.
Steve pretty much won this game at team preview, but not because it was practically OU versus RU. Crimson wound up preparing for this match. Mega Gardevoir is a threat to his team, and I don't know why he didn't bring a specially defensive Skarmy to help with the house control over Kecleon. Skarm could also have eaten up a couple of HP fires and the Iron-Headed Gardevoir, limiting its survivability, but at the end of the day, he didn't. And that's pretty much where I assume that Steve won.
Alrighty, 2, 1. Alrighty, time's up. Next.
Alright, did Steve really win at team preview? I think he did. Because Steve brought Ferrothorn, Landorus, Gardevoir, and Latios, while his only 2 UU-mons were Lucario and Suicune. While Crimson brought Kecleon, which is BL4, Beedrill, which is UU, Jolteon is RU, and Weezing is NU, so he was a little bit on the, underwhelming side. But the biggest thing is Crimson didn't bring any counters for any of the steel types that Steve brought. Instead, he brought Clefable, which is weak to steel types. Like, why would you even do that? Hidden Power Fire anywhere? I don't think I saw it. Oh, man.
Alrighty, time's up. Next.
No match in the GBA is decided by team preview, unless you plan exceptionally poorly, which I think Crimson very well did. Mega Beedrill was brought to this match when Steve has Landorus T, Ferrothorn, and his Suicune to wall it, as well as the Lucario to hit it hard with priority. Also, he didn't plan it all for Mega Gardevoir. He had a Clefable, specially defensive Clefable, which was okay, but it had no way to hit it back or to beat it. I think being able to cripple it with something like a T-Wave or any other sort of status would have definitely been a better choice.
Alright, time's up. Next.
I don't think that Crimson lost a team preview. No, I feel like he lost this match much, much earlier. About 2 months ago when the draft happened. I feel like Steve drafted just a much better team than Crimson, and it matches up so well against Crimson's that Crimson really, even if he brought like what he needed to, he wouldn't have had that good of a chance against Steve, because even still, he only has 6 months that he can bring, and he has to fit them all in.
Alrighty, time is up. That's 4, so let's move on to the next bullet. Number 2. Cooper's 6v6 timeout wouldn't have happened if he didn't bring Dusk Noir. Go!
Dusk Noir's well-with shenanigans were a pretty big factor in Cooper's game plan to stall out Nips. If not for that, Nips probably wouldn't have used up so many aromatherapies during the match. Dusk Noir was pretty responsible for the timeout, I believe, with its pressure stalling, its will-wisping shenanigans, and I also think Zapdos also contributed to it. But on Dusk Noir, if Cooper didn't bring the Dusk Noir, then I doubt the timeout would have happened.
2, 1.
Blast off.
Time's up. Next.
Alright, actually, I believe that if he wouldn't have had brought the Dusknoir, the outcome would have been different, because he still has Zapdos, he has Togekiss, which is bulky, Chansey, or is that Blissey? Not sure. But still though, it's a team full of bulk, and I don't think Dusknoir would have made a difference. He could have brought more offense for that slot, and he still could have stalled him out.
Alrighty, 3, 2, 1. Time's up. Next.
I agree. Dusknoir being brought didn't have too big of a impact on the match. Maybe it wouldn't have timed out, but it still would have been an exceptionally long match. Just because Cooper still brought a lot of bulk. He did have Togekiss. He did have everything else that Advent just mentioned that I can't remember at the moment. But the only thing Dusknoir really did that could have helped was Pressure Stall, which does help against PP stalling, and Will-O-Wisp, which can wear down Nips' team and prevent him from getting certain things accomplished offensively.
Alrighty, time's up. Next, go.
I feel like Dusknoir being brought affected the match a whole lot more than people think. The fact that Snorlax only had normal coverage, well, Dusknoir was still around, made it so it was basically just a 6 against 5, because anytime that Snorlax came in, it couldn't do anything to Dusknoir. Not to mention, Dusknoir had a really good matchup against the rest of the team, so there was absolutely no reason not to bring Dusknoir, at least in my opinion, and I feel like he won the match because he did bring it.
Alrighty, time is up. Alright, so let's move on. Mavone lost last week because of his reaction, which was basically saying, oh well, he's definitely still in a good mindset going this week. He won't choke. His reaction tells that he won't. So he's going to win against Cooper. What are your thoughts? Go.
Mavone may be in a good mindset, but Cooper's overall the smarter battler. Like I said in the Hype Train round, Cooper is going to plant his butt off this week, get a few kills with Charizard X and Nidoking, and hand Mavone his second loss of the season. Not much else to be said, so you may as well just beat me out here.
Alright, ding ding ding. Alright, next.
I feel like Molvone is going to go in, clear mindset. It's his first loss of the season, so he really doesn't have to worry about it. He's most likely just going to over-prepare for Cooper, which is exactly what he needs to do. He needs to bring hyper offense, things that are going to break walls, and I'm sure he'll get that win next week.
Alrighty. Ding ding ding.
Yeah, ding ding.
Next.
I expect the Molvone vs. Cooper match next week to be pretty long and very exciting. I think Molvone is in the right mindset, but he's going to have a hard time breaking through Cooper. Unless Molvone wants to bring a Hypercutter Defog Gliscor, his only hazard removal is Fortress with Rapid Spin, which is not only blocked by Dusknoir, but allows a free switch into Charizard X, which is a huge threat to Molvone's team.
Alright, ding ding ding. Next.
I 100% agree with Monotooi, because, you know, Dusknoir and Rapid Spin doesn't work. Fortress is really just going to be a liability this match, and if and when Cooper sets up his hazards, all he has to do is start switching around, and then the hazard damage will completely wear down Molvone's team, and I feel like Cooper is going to come out on top this week. The mindset that Cincinnati has going into the match isn't really going to affect it in the end.
Alright. Here's a bonus question. Do you guys think that he's going to run Defog, Hypercutter, Gliscor?
Yes. No.
Ooh, no.
I think he needs the Toxic Heal.
Yeah.
Probably needs a Poison Heal.
I mean, he hasn't been able to get it up 3 out of the 5.
He needs to run a substitute Sword Dance set just to break walls. Honestly, like, that's the best thing he could do. With Toxic Heal too, that's amazing.
Alright.
I think so. Though it might be tough to have switch-ins to Charizard X without it, but maybe. We'll see what he does.
Alrighty. So the last one for the day. Shady has all the momentum in the world after another great win. Dan, unfortunately, found his first loss this week. Therefore, Shady will win this week. Go!
Last time Shady and Dan battled, Dan won because of hacks. I don't think it's about momentum this week. It's more of, will Shady be able to outsmart Dan and avoid getting hacks this week? And I pretty much think that he will be. He's been playing very well this year. And aside from that, Shady is out for blood this week, and I believe he'll get his revenge against Dan and win.
Alrighty. Ding ding. Next.
I feel like Shady's gonna go in, clear mind, like I've said like 5 times this episode, I think. But he's actually just gonna go in. He's gonna get some melodic kills. He's gonna get some superior kills. He's gonna get some ass-off kills. I know he's gonna do great, and that's all we can do is just wait.
Alrighty. Ding ding. Next.
I think Shady is in a good place mentally for this match. Last match between Shady and Dan was favored by hacks, but last match was last match. Let's talk about this match. Shady has a good team matchup against Dan. Azelf and Superior are huge threats that can take on almost any Pokemon on the other team. Even special attackers like Superior can cripple the special wall Chansey with something like Knockoff. And with the right coverage, Azelf can completely rip through Dan's team. The one thing Shady does have to be careful for is Dan's Mega Sableye, because although Melodic can wear it down and Azelf can Dazzling Gleam it, it's going to be pretty threatening. And
Alrighty. Alright, time is up. Next.
You know, I feel like this match is going to be much closer than people realize. The fact that Azelf gets Dazzling Gleam doesn't really matter in the end, because Sableye also gets Shadow Sneak and Sucker Punch, both of which do a hefty amount of damage to an Azelf. Not to mention, Mega Sableye is a huge problem for Shady. I do believe that he can take it down, and I do believe Shady will win this week, but Shady has to find a way in order to take on Mega Sableye more reliably than a Foresight user.
Time's up.
I'd also like to...
Go ahead.
I would also like to point out, Foresight does not work on a Mega Sableye with Magic Bounce.
Yep.
As we did learn. Alright, I believe that is everyone, correct?
Yep.
Alrighty, guys. So, I guess that's pretty much the end. The lightning round's over. Do you guys have any final remarks this week?
Want to see me do it again?
I don't know, man.
I didn't have any chicken nuggets today.
What did you have?
I had some Utah Jazz waffles.
No! No!
Oh no.
No, no, no!
Oh man.
Oh,
Let's just hope Miguel doesn't have any Real Maril waffles.
oh god.
I mean, he probably has a Real Maril beanie that's gonna commentate his next match for him.
Was this like Harry Potter with the talking hat, except it's a beanie?
Yeah, it's the sorting hat.
A sorting beanie.
Oh man.
Oh my gosh.
Which
that's
I'd
so
much rather have than a Kesha beanie.
Somebody Photoshop the sorting hat onto Miguel.
Someone will do that too, I know they will.
Onto his shirtless body.
Unlike Miguel, I am uncomfortable sharing my shirtless body on the internet.
Hey, don't make me copyright claim this.
Oh man. That's so funny.
Alright, thank you guys all for watching. If you want to go ahead and vote below for me, or Dallas, or Mono, or Advent, or heck, even vote for Danza. He did a great job today.
Well, thank you. Even though they really can't vote for me. But that's okay. If you want to try, go ahead. This will conclude our 6th edition, Season 4, Week 6 of Around the Rhyhorn. We're on a 6-day, 23.5-hour break. I've put a straw poll to vote on the panelist you most agree with in the description. Go vote. It makes you feel big and strong. Thanks for listening, guys, and peace out.
That's all, folks.
Somebody Photoshop the sorting hat onto Miguel.
Excellent! 10 points to Gryffindor.